welcome back into the NFL matchup report. We're here to do our final division preview before the season finally kicks off here. We've gone through North, East, and South, and now we're here to do the Western divisions, which I know we're both excited for, and especially because we finally get to talk about the reigning Super Bowl champions in this show. So excited to do that as well. But Jay, how you been, man?
I am good, and I feel like you mentioned, not just the reigning Super Bowl champs, but I feel like there's just a lot of there's a lot of I don't say greatness to come out of these two divisions, but I feel like if there would be a winner, you know, or consistent competition, I should say. I don't say winner because it could get crazy, but if there's two divisions that are the most competitive, it's the NFC West and the AFC West. So I'm excited for it.
I think I agree. It's like the South, like NFC South is very like competitive because they're
It's
all
for a
like
different reason
mediocre.
though.
Yeah, but
And
like
it's
these
like
teams
it's
are
like
like
oh yeah, like you're all fighting against each other to like win somehow, and and someone has to just be the winner.
yeah, exactly. It's very different. But all right, man, let's get into it. We're starting with the AFC, right?
Yep. All right. Broncos are our first team here. 14-3 they finished last season. They got a new offensive coordinator with Davis Webb, who was their former passing game coordinator. And their biggest addition, of course, was taking the Rams approach and saying, forget our picks, and trading for Jalen Waddle from Miami. And they also drafted Jonah Coleman out of Washington, who I personally really liked. Watching him in film, he was kind of like a bowling ball, like just kind of bounced off people. Just a really good contact balance, but actually kind of smaller running back that I really liked. And they got some good depth pieces in the draft as well with Tyler Oyedin and Cage Casey on that offensive line. First off, Jalen Waddle an amazing pickup for them for what he can bring from a versatility standpoint in their offense. Not that they didn't have versatility, because I think they had something similar, but I think Jalen Waddle is the like ultimate like speed injection into your offense, and to pair him alongside Cortland Sutton, who you can do a lot more, like move him into like move Waddle into slot, move him around the field a lot, and do a bunch of different action to kind of get him open. It really opens up their offense a lot. Obviously, you really need him to stay healthy, which to my like that is just my biggest concern with this team. A lot of this team is the same team that we saw make the AFC Championship game. Um, and in that game, it was Bo Nix who wasn't healthy. And I still kind of question if he's 100% healthy. Naturally, like every time we get around this time of year, it's like we hear, oh, they're perfectly fine. They're perfectly fine. And I think back to like Matthew Stafford last year. And like we were hearing chronic back issues, like weird stuff, like, oh, what's going to happen with him? And he goes out and wins MVP. But that just isn't the case for all quarterbacks. And I think Bo Nix is someone that I'm kind of looking at and being like, are you entirely healthy, or are they just saying that like to like not freak anybody out? Because some of the photos they were sharing about his like legs, I was like, I don't know if that should look like that. But I was just like, hey, what do I know? I'm just like just talking about it. But either way, like this team to me, like they're going to be good again.
100%. Like it's like you said, like they were so close to the Super Bowl last year, but like Bo Nix gets injured, and then they're going into the AFC Championship game with Jared Stidham. But it's like, so you're basically saying like, okay, same offense, just add Jalen Waddle, which honestly, I mean, that really just might be enough for this team. Right? It's just he adds such a crazy. It's like he adds like another element to them where it's a lot of like the same stuff in the system that they want to do. It's just he can take everything like an extra mile, right? It's like it's not like they didn't have guys who have speed or who catch slants and like every once in a while like make a big play. But now you have a guy who you're like, we just need to get the ball in his hands because he can turn a what would be like a 10-yard play for some of our players into a touchdown, like a 90-yard touchdown. So it's like you add that explosive element with him, and then you're right. Like I'm glad you mentioned like Cortland Sutton, guys like him and Pat Bryant, like these bigger guys who are going to really thrive with a guy like Jalen Waddle next to him, where it's like if Waddle's taking all that attention because you have to worry about the explosive plays, then guys like Cortland Sutton can eat going down the sideline or across the middle of the field as well. Although Bo Nix isn't, he kind of gets the ding with like a lot of quarterbacks lately where it's like he doesn't throw the field a lot, but I think this is going to open up the offense a lot more. Like it'll be a lot of easier looks for them at least. And then yeah, the run game. It's so funny that you brought you brought up Coleman. Like I feel like everyone like just kind of pushes him to the side, but it's like the running back room is like what's more interesting to me with their offense in a way because it's like RJ Harvey had like what 12 touchdowns last year, 13, and it feels like most of them were just like right there in the red zone. So like they weren't exactly like the most explosive run game. It's just they were kind of just efficient in a way. their offensive line is still pretty good, like the better in pass protection than in the run game. But I am curious to see like with the new offensive play caller and Davis Webb now, like what different directions does he take this team in? Right, it should be a lot of the same philosophies. Just you never know. Like every play caller is different, right? Like we'll talk about this with some of the defensive guys later too, where it's like yeah, you might come from like a Shanahan tree, but that doesn't mean you're going to call plays like Shanahan because once the bullets start flying, you don't know how you're going to sequence these things or how you're going to react to the defense, things like that. So yeah, Davis Webb and the running back room are very interesting to me. I think Jalen Waddle will have an amazing season. Like I don't think people realize because he was in Miami for the first part of his career, like how good he really was there. So I am excited for him to be in an offense like this where I think he can really shine as a number one. And then on the
Yeah.
defensive side of the ball, I mean, this it still should be a top five defense, right? They lost John Franklin Myers, we talked about in a previous episode. Like big fan of his. He's now on the Titans next to Jeffrey Simmons after playing with Zach Allen. So good for John Franklin Myers. But now I'm kind of curious about like that second D tackle spot. It sounds like Matt Roach will be over there. But then at the same time, they also lost or are losing Jonathan Cooper because whatever he's got going on in his personal life with domestic stuff, he's still currently under investigation. He still has to go to court and possibly do jail time where they're talking about like they don't even know if he's going to play this season. If he does, there's going to be a suspension. It's all up in the air. But that's a big loss for them coming off of the edge because that leaves a lot on Zach Allen and Nick Benito's shoulders, who not that they can't carry the load, but it definitely just it adds more pressure for them, and it's just a lot more on their plate losing a guy like that. But I think the secondary is still going to be very good. I mean, you have the best corner in the league in Pat Surtain. As long as he's coming back healthy, I mean, that just solves so many issues for them. And then opposite of him, it's probably gonna be like Riley Moss and whoever else, and McMillan in the slot, and they still have Jade Barron. I'm pretty sure, like just kind of like hanging out in the wings. So it's like the defense should still be around top five in the league. I'm not too worried about that, and I think the offense should take a step. So it's like to me that makes the Broncos a team where we should be looking at them like one of the final 2 or 3 weekends of the NFL season as one of those teams that can contend.
Yeah, I have that same mindset with him. And I do, like you mentioned, the run game, I think is like the only like a kind of hole that I would poke in this offense. And it's solely because J.K. Dobbins is like inevitably like hurt at some point during the season, which is why they would go out and draft Jonah Coleman and have some type of depth. You still have R.J. Harvey, but I think it's like just as a smaller back. Like yes, I know there's the he's beating the odds as a smaller back, but I think when you consider like giving him 20 carries a game when J.K. Dobbins is hurt, like that's when those things start to kind of add up. So. I like that. I would kind of question that, especially Bo Nix is still coming off of an injury, and a lot of the running the game and establishing the run game is going to be so important to making sure that he's in rhythm and not forcing him to throw every down, even if you do have the weapons around him. So, like you mentioned as well with the defense, it's like this is the same team. Like Nick Bonito is going to dominate regardless. Um, it more so is kind of the depth, I think I would say. So like running backs, the running back room and the depth on the defensive end are kind of the only two kind of holes that I would poke on with this team. But once again, this was a team that like if they had a competent quarterback in that AFC Championship game, not no disrespect to Jared Stidham, but if Bo Nix is playing, I think they're either in the Super Bowl. So this team is the same thing, just with with Jalen Waddle now added.
Yeah, and like my thing with Bo Nix is like I'm still not all the way there with him. Like I like yes, he had a really good season last year. They won a lot of games. Obviously, it was also a lot of really close games. Were they like 11 and
Yes.
3 in one score games or whatever it was? It's like
Our time is up. I'll let you finish this point though.
okay, yeah. So there's a lot of high variance in how they ended these like one score close games in the fourth quarter last year. That happened so much. So it's like might see some regression there. But I mean, regression for them, they had 14 wins. So maybe it's just like okay, you win 11 games now or 10 games, and you're like okay, fine, you're still a playoff team that can win this division.
Yeah. I do think, and this is where kind of final thoughts. I always got to get them in, but I do think the run game as well, like that to me is a crucial part of like making sure that they're not constantly having to come from behind in these games and establishing rhythm early on. So we'll see, but they're going to be a favorite again this year. And speaking of favorites, and what would typically be the favorite every year, the Kansas City Chiefs. They had a very uncharacteristic season, finishing 6-11 last year. Um, I would like I, the one thing about the Patrick Mahomes like injury is that a lot of people will say like, oh, like it was only like the Chiefs were bad because Mahomes got hurt, And it's like, no, they were bad because like before he got hurt, and then their troubles got worse when he like
Yeah,
went down.
and
It
like
was like,
not to
all right,
interrupt,
like
but it's like it should, if anything, it should just highlight how good Mahomes is because he was
yes,
carrying that team to victories before he got injured, which is maybe what led to him getting injured because so much was on him, with especially with his legs. Like he was running more
yes.
than ever. It felt like.
It was the whole point I saw after were some people, and mostly Chiefs fans obviously, to try to like kind of like make excuses like, oh, if we had Patrick Mahomes, like this is a different season. It's like, yeah, but like you were kind of bad before that. It was just like this age was the biggest issue with this team last year, where it's like you're getting up there, and we knew about this like before. They didn't really do too much to address it, and it was like, all right, like you're just gonna ride it till the wheels fall off, and it seemed like that was kind of where it was headed. But I will say, I think this offseason gives me a lot more confidence in them moving forward. So first, coaching wise, they brought back Airbnb, who everywhere else, just not a good place for him. But I'm excited to see him back in Kansas City because when he was in Kansas City, we were hearing his name like constantly in head coaching gigs and like being the future, like offense. And now a lot of this will attribute back to Patrick Mahomes and being like, oh, like was it really just Patrick Mahomes taking advantage of these type of things? But new addition wise, drafted Montour Lane, who I'm a really big fan of, as like a really sticky, like best, in my opinion, best DB to come out of this draft class is like once again a really sticky coverage type of corner where you can line him up to man to man and you don't have to worry about him. I think he's one of those like we're going to be talking about in conversation about like Pat Surtain in a couple of years. Um, they also drafted Peter Woods, who I really like as like a nice like kind of post Jones like defensive tackle, and to kind of like bring him in and like learn from him in a sense. And then their big free agency signing was Justin Fields. No, I'm joking. Kenneth Walker. Um, they they signed him from from the Seahawks, who comes in and kind of solves a lot of the problems that they may have had with Isaiah Pacheco. As someone who we saw in the Super Bowl, like his vision and his ability and patience almost was a big part of why the Seahawks were so good on the run. And obviously, you would want to see that more consistently throughout the season. He definitely picked it up a lot more in the second half, especially when Charbonnet went down. But he had to. Like the carries just came his way. So I'm really excited to see what that looks like. And I'm also a really big fan of Emmett Johnson, who they drafted as well out of Nebraska. Like I swear I did not see that man miss a hole when it came to film. And then yes, they actually did assign Justin Fields, who if Mahomes isn't 100% yet, or they're not fully confident with him, starting week 1 or week 2 or wherever it is, like I think you're comfortable enough to put him out there, and he's not going to cause too much harm for you while you're setting things up. So health, I think, is going to be a very interesting talking point with this team as well. What is the Mahomes situation, which is why I think it's so good to have Justin Fields there, no matter what people's opinion on him. Like he sets a very baseline for what you can do, and you can do like use him for a bunch of versatility options if you're not 100% sold on Mahomes. But at the same time, this defense is still very old, so it's health and age are my two biggest concerns with this team.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the health. I mean, they're trying to say like Mahomes will be back like first few weeks of the season, which would be very surprising for me. And I think I would almost like err on the side of caution because it's Mahomes. But and I also maybe selfishly I kind of do want to see what Justin Fields can do with Andy Reid calling plays for him and behind like at least like a functional offensive ecosystem around him because he really hasn't had that before. And there's still a part of me that's like holding out on Justin Fields to be like a Sam Darnold reclamation kind of guy down the line. But I don't know. So we'll see what happens there. And then yeah, the run game they need it. They had one run last year, one that went over 20 yards. Like that was it. And it was like they were relying on Kareem Hunt a bunch, which like if your running game is relying on Kareem Hunt, it's already over. So the fact that they can bring in Kenneth Walker, who was an explosive run guy for the Seahawks, like you mentioned, and we'll kind of get into why that change happened for them. Why like obviously Charbonnet gets hurt, but also the Seahawks just kind of changed and really relied on Kenneth Walker, especially in the playoffs. And he takes that and runs up to the Super Bowl MVP. So like adding that element to this is like awesome, but it's also like the health stuff. It's like, is Xavier Worthy going to be fine? How is Rasheed Rice actually? He was rehabbing in prison. Like he was literally rehabbing in prison before the season started. So it's like, how is he going to be? Kelsey is obviously up there in age now, and it's like we'll see what happens. He's saying he's back in better shape than he was last year, but we'll see if the yoga he's been doing with Miss Swift are good. And then yeah, on the defensive side, I'm glad you said everything about Delane because like I'm also like very much looking forward to him playing. But for the sake of time, let me just get on my soapbox real quick about Noel Williams, who is most likely, I think, at least going to be playing opposite of Delane in this as the other corner. I talked about him a lot when the draft came out when he was coming out of Cal because it was like him and two other guys coming out of that draft class that year, all from Cal. Where I was like, holy crap! Like, or is everyone seeing these DBs coming out of this college? All three of them get drafted. Like, I think it was like day three, like early, like day four or round four kind of stuff, round five. But like I'm very like he had to play some last year and he genuinely showed some like really good. Like I think he's a ready-made starter like right now who I think could surprise a lot of people. And it's like this secondary could end up actually being like a very young, like new, fresh take for the Chiefs where Spagnola will have more to do with them. Like maybe they can pivot a little bit more. Whereas like last year it was, Trent McDuffie is an all-pro like great corner in this league, but I think he wasn't being used entirely properly by the Chiefs, mainly because of necessity and the personnel that they had. Like you want him more in the slot, but I don't know. Like I'm excited to see what Spags does with some new guys in the secondary. I'm not excited about their D line. It still kind of just feels like it's Chris Jones and Carl Loftus. They do like some of the younger guys they got, and like Peter Woods and Norman Lott. I think they're very excited about, although he's been injured now. So
Yeah.
yeah, already injuries. But I don't know. So it's like if you can get something out of Peter Woods and it's just finally someone to help out Chris Jones, maybe like that'll help things out. But Chris Jones is also now at the age where he's kind of like remember when Fletcher Cox for the Eagles, like the final Super Bowl year he was with the Eagles, where it was like, all right, we know you got it. You just kind of have to conserve yourself and save it for like the big moments when you need you. That's kind of where Chris Jones is with his career now, which is properly like it's deserved, right? He should be
Yeah.
that way. But you need more consistent help throughout the season. So yeah, I'm really curious to see what Spags does with like a kind of newer look defense. And then the beginning part, I'll get to that real quick. Yes, the head coaching stuff and his personality seems to be grating with a lot of people when anywhere he goes. But anywhere he goes, the run game does improve. I mean, ask Adrian Peterson. Like running backs, like he may be a tough coach, but like Bieniemy is a very good run game coordinator. So I think you bring him in with as well as Kenneth Walker. I think the running game will be a central focus for this team. They're probably going to be under center more, which will help out the run game. And then all of that is like any weight you can take off of Patrick Mahomes' shoulder as like the best quarterback in the league is obviously like great. So any plus you give to the offense that doesn't rely on Patrick Mahomes having to create magic every play, I think only adds to the explosive factor of what this offense could be. It's just your receiving room is just so awful. I don't know how much of a difference it can actually make because that just may be such a detriment.
I wouldn't say awful. I just it's really is just like I want to say wasted potential. I think is a better like just thing right now, just because they're like Rasheed Rice and Xavier Worthy, like they can give you a lot. It's just health, off the field stuff. Like there's so much like chaos factoring into it, which makes it difficult to rely on them and consistently say that you're going to be weapons. And so I do that is another big part of this. Oh, that's the end of our time. Where I look at this and say like I do kind of question the receiving room, especially with Mahomes coming back. But I, as bad as things were last year, I think this defense and at least the injection of youth will put them in a much better direction.
Agreed.
All right. On to our next team, the Los Angeles Chargers, who were 11-6 last season. They brought in Mike McDaniel, who was their big kind of like I would say their big get off free agency.
Hmm.
As their new offensive coordinator, obviously former head coach in Miami. And a lot, I think as much as the chaos and things seemed a lot worse in Miami than they were, especially with how they closed out the season and kind of actually went on a little run. Um, I don't think it was Mike McDaniel's fault, like given everything, the situation he was put in. And I think everyone kind of universally recognized that because he was still getting head coaching jobs like this off season and like looking, which I don't blame him for not taking any of the available options. But either way, he lands in Chargers and gets to work with Justin Herbert now. And that offense with Lad McConkey, Quentin Johnston's got a nice, kind of rejuvenated, feeling after last season. They also brought in Chris O'Leary as their new defensive coordinator. So a lot of kind of change, like on both sides of the ball there. They also did draft Akeem Mesidor out of Miami, who like very old. That was biggest issue right off the bat. Like he's like 25. With that being said, he can come in and instantly kind of give you some juice already because like no matter what you say about the edge, he's clearly a proven just commodity at Miami, and he can come in and just give you that same energy and that same level of intensity right at the collegiate level. And then some smaller additions like Keaton Mitchell and David Njoku, just as kind of like some death pieces. But to be honest, like the biggest thing is their offensive line. Like you need to protect Justin Herbert. And like I wouldn't say it's not entirely their fault because you did have injuries to Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt, and it was just like, all right, like like losing both of your tackles is just tough. Like there's nothing you could do after that. But it's the fact that like Tyler Diaz is already hurt and out for the season. Right? No,
Oh
I
no,
think I'm
he's
wrong
out.
about that for season.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
he's out, and it was again. And this is Chargers fans are very upset about this. This is 2 years in a row where their guard basically threw someone into the center and injured them for the season.
Yeah. But this is where they're relying a lot on their center who they drafted out of Florida this year and Jake Slaughter, which I think at the time, like, even me personally, when this happened, I was like, all right, like, you literally just kind of signed, a center that you feel like is going to be the pivotal piece of this. Like this, and Slaughter had never played any other position besides center, so it was kind of like you can't really move him to like an. You could move him to interior guard, but the adjustment would be a bit harder. But
I
I
mean,
mean,
Kim
now
Jurgens did it.
yeah, I don't have a ton of confidence, and that because that was that was Stoutland land. That was different breed. Um, but either way, now he does. You don't have to worry about that issue because you can say, all right, like we clearly have an opening. Like you're our guy, so this is what we drafted you for. So I'm really excited to see what that looks like, and mostly just the return of like their tackles is the biggest part of this, because it, it was bad last year, but I wouldn't necessarily say it was like that. It was like entirely their fault. It was injuries and like just losing both your tackles is tough.
Yeah, and Rashawn Slater just started. I think this week started practicing again. So it's like it's not like their injury stuff is like just away now that they're coming into the season fully healthy. But I mean, this team, it's insane that like yeah, this could be the best tackle duo in the league. Like when they're healthy, like legitimately, like Rashawn Slater and Joel are that good. And so like this offense has to revolve around them. The interior of this offensive line scares the hell out of me. It really does. Like Tyler Biotis was going to be a great addition, and then now like they signed him to 3 years and like a good amount of money for a reason. Like he was going to be like a good adult who could run the offensive line. Now you got a second round rookie in there who like yeah, they were about to play him at right guard, but it seems like they were going to play him there because out of like desperation almost. So it's like I don't know, like obviously they're going to say like, oh, we're confident in our guy that we drafted, but like it seemed like it was more like a in 2 to 3 years you'll move into center when we can move on from Tyler Biotter. So this kind of accelerated their plans there. The McDaniel thing is awesome because, and I'm going to focus mainly on the run game with this one. Everybody in the league this offseason, like every offensive coach you talk to, says they've been studying Mike McDaniel's run game stuff, like from the Miami Dolphins, like all offseason. Like the best coaches, like Kevin O'Connell and Ben Johnson, have singularly called out, like, "Oh yeah, I've been watching a lot of Miami run game." So Mike McDaniel bringing that kind of stuff to a team where you have two All-Pro tackles as well as Omari and Hampton, who could end up being like the best running back in the league this year. Like I'm fully confident saying like I think he'll if he stays healthy, he could be like numbers wise and just in general the best running back in the league this year because of what he can do with Mike McDaniel. And then they've added more beef with the tight ends as well, so they're going to be playing a lot of, like heavy. Like they kind of were doing a lot in previous years with Harbaugh, anyways. But we know how they love to use their tight ends as like multiple utility tools. They bring in a fullback with them from Miami because that was like on apparently that was on McDaniel's like short list. Like I need my running back. I think it's Ingle, right? So like they bring him in. You're going to hear his name a lot this year, like out there with the Hampton, like blocking for him and probably even getting some touches. So this I'm very this offense like the ceiling is like the ceiling of the NFL, right? Like they could just be the top offense in the league potentially, but the interior of the O line and health in general will hurt that, as well as like the receiver options. Like I think McConkey could have like a really good bounce back year after we saw from him his rookie year. Obviously, things like what happened last year, it's just I don't know. It's such a hard read on how the offense actually was. But I think McConkey out of the slot could have a really big year for them. But then yeah, Quentin Johnston, if he can just continue catching the ball and keep the the progression he got last year, it could be a really fun and explosive offense. The defense is interesting because you mentioned Chris O'Leary. It's like if you're reading all the moves he's made, it's like he's been with the Harbaughs before, and then like it seems like they literally were like, okay, we're probably going to lose Jesse Minter, so they sent O'Leary down to Western Michigan to be a defensive coordinator just for like a year, and then Minter gets obviously like like hired, which was predictable. And then like okay, you come back up from college, and like now you can run our defense for us too. Almost kind of like Minter and was it McDonald were both at like Michigan, not the same Michigan, but like they were at Michigan doing that stuff in college, and then came up and it's all good. Which funny side point, defensive coordinators from college seem to do a lot better than offensive coordinators do. Holy crap! I mean, maybe this is because I'm still stained with
Charles Kelly.
yeah, ugh, that dude. But yeah, and even look at like Halfley, like the new head coach for the Dolphins. It's like, yeah, you bring in these defensive coordinators from college, but if you're an offensive coordinator from college, I want nothing to do with you. Um, I don't know. I mean, the defense, you still have Tui Pelotu, you still have Khalil Mack. I like Henley at linebacker. The corners, I think the corners were surprising last year, but I think if they could take another step or even just play the way they were last year, like this isn't going to be like a whole defensive scheme change. It's still going to be a lot of like, we'll let you do the underneath stuff, we'll rally to it. Like we're going to play physical. Derwin James is going to be everywhere still. So like, I don't know if the defense will be as good as it was last year because I just think Jesse Minter is like just one of those dudes when it comes to calling defense. But like a step back for this team could still be like a top 10 defense. So
Yes.
we'll see how that goes. And if the offense is as good as we think it can be, it is one of the things like, hey, just hang around like 10 or 12 best defense and then we can make this work.
All right, we got like 30 seconds left, so I'll kind of close this with like the most important part of all this, which is Justin Herbert.
I was like, hey, we're going to
Um,
get to him in the playoffs.
and so Justin Herbert is a very interesting quarterback because yes, like we are very clear of his talent, but year after year, it is excuse after excuse after excuse for why he hasn't taken the leap to be in conversations with Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. And I think that's the frustration part. There's always the memes online about like if man, like if he had a good offensive line, if if everything was kind of set up. Because we hear a lot of that with Justin Herbert. Oh, if he was on the Eagles and had Jalen Hurts system, like he'd do better. And it's like even when he was given the opportunities and he's he needs to be the performer. I i think at times that's where I would want to see him grow more is like constantly stepping into the role of being the guy for them, and despite all the issues, no matter what's happening, stepping up and winning games for them at times. And not to say that I don't think he can't do it, because I that's what it's a frustrating part. Is like he's clearly capable of it, and I know he can do it. I feel like I'm giving him a coach speak. Like I know you can do it. Just dig deep. But I genuinely think it is just a matter of just executing it because he has the personnel, and especially this year, even with a revamped offensive line. You said like you're still worried about if Slater's coming into season fully healthy. You know what you're getting yourself into, especially with the injuries to all and Slater and them still coming back. You have a lot more pieces around you. Amari Hampton stepping into a second year and being more comfortable. All of it is laid out for you to perform. You have Mike McDaniels as your offensive coordinator who can scheme around a lot of these issues. Everything is set up for success for him, and I just need the execution part. I don't want to hear no excuses this year.
Yeah, my final note literally on the Chargers was just can they do anything in the playoffs? Like just win a damn game in the playoffs.
Yeah.
All
All
right.
right. Final team in the AFC West, a Las Vegas Raiders, who you were very high on last year, mostly because of Geno Smith. And we saw how that happened.
Well, there were other factors too, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. But I think there might be some genuine kind of hope there this year. Obviously, we've talked about the rest of the division. And you're like, oh, there's genuine like Super Bowl contenders there, and then it's like the Raiders who like you've marginally improved, but you're still you need to look around the rest of the division. But Clayton Kubiak is a new head coach, obviously a former OC for the Seahawks. Andrew Janoko is their new offensive coordinator. He was the QB coach for Seattle, and then Rob Leonard is their new defensive coordinator, who was a D line coach for them. So completely new front office staff. They drafted the human embodiment of joy with the first overall pick, and Fernando Mendoza, and then paired him with the adult version, like mature version of him, with Captain Kirk Cousins. So not entirely bad. And then they went out and during free agency and made a good couple like veteran additions: N'Kobe Dean, Tyler Linderbaum, Quay Walker, Quaddy Pay. And then during the draft as well, they were able to get Jermod McCoy led at like a historic fall, like during the draft, and obviously like injuries. And I think a lot of people are kind of like DBs are always really hard to like interpret, especially when they're coming off of these leg injuries. And there's like who was it the Eagles drafted a couple like this is like maybe 2016 now, who was like fresh off an ACL injury. It's not. It's like Sydney something, right? Either way,
Oh yeah, I know you're talking about out of Washington. Yeah.
yes, out of Washington. I think of like that, and then even last year, like Siobhan Ravel, like those players where it's like it's really hard to like really engage them because it's like, all right, Jamar McCoy was one of the best DBs in the league, but you're going off a film like 2 years ago, and yeah, same thing with Siobhan Ravel out of ECU last year. So a little bit like nervous about what that looks like at the NFL level. But they also drafted Traden Stukes, saved out of Arizona, who I really liked as well. So
Yeah, and
made a
reportedly,
lot
like
of
I think it just came out early this week that Stukes might be the starting safety already.
yes, made a lot of great additions. With that being said, this team will still be in Jeremiah Smith conversations next year, and it necessarily isn't like them just being the Raiders this time. It literally is just like you look around the rest of the division, and yes, all the pieces you've made are like fun additions that like definitely take you a step further. But this is still like a transition year, and I especially look at that receiving room, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like that is like I I think it's safe to say that this is the worst receiving room in the entire NFL. Where it's like Trey Tucker, Jalen Naylor, and Jack Beach. I'm like, oh, like
All right, so I agree with you, but at the same time, I think you have to consider Brock Bowers a part of that room with how,
yes,
especially with how they're going to use him in this offense. Like he is
yes.
basically
Oh,
taking
we're
the
hearing some crazy things about the targets he's about to get, which the versatility and what you can do with him, completely understand. You need to like have some other weapons. Like it
no.
is not going to be good. But everywhere else is like improved. Like Tyler Nebaum is like bringing him into your to kind of anchor your offensive line. I think it's a great addition. And then even on the opposite side, like bringing in Kobe Dean to lead your defense, I think is just as important. So I think that they've set themselves a solid foundation, but it's just a foundation right now. Like this is really going to be like a learning year, and then you're still trying to figure out like what is the balance with like Kirk Cousins and Fernando Mendoza. Like, at what point do you say like this is time to like let Mendoza in? Like, what's this type of situation we've seen? Like Kirk Cousins has obviously kind of been like he's getting paid way too much money to have him just like be a veteran presence on any type of roster. But I do think like you don't want to just throw Mendoza into the wild with this lineup and say like figure it out. So I'm really interested to see like what that balance looks like as well. And we're already like and Ashton Genty another year as well. Even if he is battling injuries, it's going to be really interesting. So I just look at this and say like this is going to be a really fun, and of course Max Crosby's still there, really fun like kind of transition year for them. But that like you look around the rest of the division that we've talked about already, and you look at the rest of the NFL, this just roster just doesn't kind of match up to them well.
No, I mean it's one of those rosters that like probably you and I will enjoy watching because we're like, oh, look at all these like fun pieces that they're building towards something here. But like at the same time, I'm weirdly bullish on the offense, and it's mainly because of Brock Bowers and Kubiak. Like just those two alone, I'm like, because they're saying that he's going to play the JSN role for this offense that we saw in Seattle last year, which is like you put Brock Bowers in that role getting that many catches. I'm like, this could be generational stuff we're about to witness if they can just get the ball to him, right? And so I'm like, I'm very excited for what Brock Bowers could do this year, coming back healthy. Even when he wasn't healthy last year, he was still putting up like numbers where you're like, yeah, like I know we see what Trey McBride is doing, who we'll talk about later, but like Brock Bowers is the best tight end in the league, and he'll come back fully healthy with an offensive coordinator who actually knows what he's doing. We talked about somewhat about Chip Kelly and just the malpractice that was done with this offense last year, where it was like he took we were the only reason we were slightly excited about Chip Kelly coming into the Raiders was that we're like, oh, okay, all this fun stuff that he was doing at Ohio State when they won the championship. It was like Chip Kelly was doing some like interesting stuff as a coordinator. He brought none of that to the NFL with the Raiders. It was just abysmal. I mean, we talked about it. It was like this team like gave up on offense like halfway through the season. But I mean, yeah, Ashton, even though he's hurt, like I like Mike Washington, who they got behind him. He's like really explosive so far in the preseason and in camp apparently. Jalen Naylor is interesting to me because they were very high on him with the Vikings, but obviously he was like the third option behind Addison and Justin Jefferson. So it almost feels like they're hoping he can step into almost like a number two role for them because of Brock Bowers kind of being like your number one, and then everyone else just kind of like contribute where you can. You still have Michael Meyer there too, like as like the backup tight end who can do a lot for you. So it's like I don't know. And then like I am curious to see like when do we see Mendoza? Like is it going to be like halfway through the season? Like is Kirk Cousins going to get like the first 6 to 8 weeks to operate this offense and then we'll go from there? But if Kubiak's cooking, man, like I don't know. I think he's proven to be just one of those guys as an offensive play caller, which is why he got this job. I mean, they got the number one overall pick and the most coveted, like I think coordinator. I mean, maybe you could say Mike Daniel, but like we've seen how like he's been a head coach before. So it's like now you bring in
Yeah.
Kubiak, and I don't know, man. Like I'm weirdly optimistic about this offense. Obviously, the offensive line, like you got Spencer Burford there, who like if you couldn't win a starting guard spot with the 49ers, it's kind of saying something. And then we'll see what happens with Jackson Powers Johnson, who was I think pretty sure they originally brought him on to be the center. So he gets replaced there and moved to the guard, and he's played there before. But I don't know, like if Colton Miller can stay healthy the whole entire time, if DJ Glaze can just give you like acceptable play, like I think it could be good enough where by the time we get to November, we're like, let's see Mendoza in this offense. Like, let's get him some snaps. Like, I want to see what this can look like with him as he gets like, more practice and as the starter. And the defense, I've said before, I'm a big fan of Patrick Graham, who's now with the Steelers, and he had this defense somehow around like 15 when it came to EPA and DVOA and all that. Like he somehow made what should have been like a bottom five defense, like average. So he goes away. So I'm curious to see what that looks like now with Leonard, who was with him last year. But what's interesting about Leonard is he was in charge of a lot of their like run game stuff, like on the and he was like the D line coach as well. And this actually was like a pretty good run defense last year. Like I was like if it wasn't top five, it was near there. So I'm curious to see like with the linebacker specifically, like is he just gonna send Quay Walker and Kobe Dean to just run downhill every play? Like they might have to do that because of what's in front of them on in the D line. Like yeah, I'm not the D line again looks like it'll just be Max Crosby and whoever else can help.
Yeah, Max
But
Crosby and friends there.
yeah, and Eric Stokes last year as a DB had a good season. I like Jeremy Chin. Yeah, like we said, it looks like Stooks gonna be starting, so like that makes it like a little bit more fun there, like a rangy guy who can maybe do some stuff for you. And Darian Porter, Taron Johnson, you have a lot of like serviceable people, and it's just you're really just worried about getting pressure on the other team, but for the most part, this team. But like I think they'll still be a good run defense, and then just get off the field when you can see what so we can see what this offense can do because the offense has a chance to actually be surprisingly productive and explosive with Kubiak.
All right, our time is up, but I like I said, I'll use that to transition into the final predictions for this division. I think they're still going to be in Jeremiah Smith conversations come draft time. So I have them finishing last in the division. I have the Broncos finishing third, and I don't know if
You got the
I actually
Broncos third. No, stick with it. Stick with it. Nope.
uh, no, okay, I'm coming to my senses. I made this a couple days ago, and like as I was talking through it with you, I can't do it. So I'm gonna go Chiefs 3, Broncos 2, Chargers 1.
Wow.
I have a lot of faith in that Mike McDaniel's like, and yes, I know I went on the whole like if man thing with Justin Herbert. I think this is a year where we'd see him take that step, and he's like looking like the Justin Herbert that's in these conversations with Joe Burrow, in these conversations with Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen as like actual MVP candidate. And I think a lot of it is going to come down to Mike McDaniel's and his offensive scheme.
All right. Though, well, I'm glad we're a little bit different here because I'm going to go Broncos, Chargers, Chiefs, Raiders. Like, I just think the Broncos, we saw them do it. Like, yes, they lost a little bit, but they also added Jalen Waddle. Davis Webb's like a kind of like a mystery there, but we know Sean Payton is still there and can take over if needed. Like if things are going that bad, like we saw Dan Campbell, literally, a Sean Payton disciple, literally do that last year during the middle of his season. So it's like we know that's in the playbook. And I don't know. I think I just trust Sean Payton enough where it's like we saw him do it before, and this defense and this offense can be top 10 on either side. So I'm going with the Broncos first.
Honestly, I think those two, I think are they're just going to alternate throughout the season.
Yeah.
Whereas like those matchups will be like must watch solely because it's like we're trying to see who's going to win the division out of those two.
Can I ask one more question about this division before
Yes.
we move on? Do you think we're selling low on the Chiefs? Like, do you think
See,
they could actually make some sort of like Chiefs s comeback?
so that's what made me like put them at two originally because I was like, this is the Chiefs. Like Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. Like he can go out there and just win games for you. But I was like, I do think this is where it's like the personnel that you have surrounding him, it isn't good enough to like to say like, oh, we like it's serviceable, so Patrick Mahomes can win us games. Like it very much reminds me of like the Eagles a couple seasons ago, where it was like the defense did their part, and it was like, all right, just let our offense go out there, let Jalen Hurts go out there and win games. And it reminds me of that like Brandon Graham clip where he's like, oh, like you must not know we got Jalen Hurts. Like that type of confidence, like that makes sense when you have a good defense that can put your quarterback in positions to go win games. I don't think the defense, as young as they are, and the mix with the age with like a couple of old guys as well with Chris Johnson there or Chris Jones there. I still think it's not good enough to say like we're in a position where Patrick Mahomes can go out there and actually win us games. So I think that's why like originally I was like Patrick Mahomes, but I was like like and Andy Reid is a big part of this as well. Like he's is such a big part that I think kind of goes underrated because you have Pat, but I think all of it this year it's like I think we start to see like the age really start to catch up in those skill positions that they have, especially the D line.
Hmm. Yeah. All right.
All
Let's move
right.
on to the NFC.
NFC West, we'll start with the Cardinals. So Mike LaFleur is their new head coach,
Let's just get the team out of the way. Yeah.
and Nathaniel Hackett is their new offensive coordinator. And I will say that like that pissed me off right away because I was like, Really? Like, what does Nathaniel Hackett done that like would signify he's worth giving any type of like opportunity, especially at like an offensive coordinator level? Like,
At least
I
he's
don't.
not calling plays.
Yeah, I still just like what it like. I don't want him like even getting close to like. Oh, he already is now, but like I get like him over the shoulder of Jeremiah Love, like giving him advice. I was like, I don't know if I'd like listen to it. But speaking of Jeremiah Love, that was their big first round pick, who is a Bijan level threat. Very simply, like when it comes to the run game, like Bijan level. I like a lot of. Oh, I'm all over the place. A lot of people compared him a lot to Jameer Gibbs, but I think because of like his physicality, I leaned a bit more on like he reminds me a lot more of Bijan, but still explosive. We saw a lot of that in the preseason game before he ended up getting hurt. So obviously dodged a big bullet that it wasn't anything major, but you are going to be interested to see what that looks like if he's already battling an injury this early on. And then they drafted their second round rookie and Chase Basantis, who I was kind of excited for, especially in that offensive line towards MCL. So probably won't see him for this season. But for me, this team is not going to be good. We know this. But I do like a very small part of me is like this offense could just be fun, like in some way, because I think Jacoby Brissett like deserves a lot more respect for what he was able to do last year. Michael Wilson had a really great year. I think Marvin Harrison like the if he can get his confidence figured out, he's one of the top, like in my mind, he could be one of the top receivers in the league. And I like, and maybe
I'm
I'm
still there
like
with you.
I,
It
I'm
feels like
still
we're
on
on
this
an
train.
island.
Yes. And like so many people have given up on him, and they're like, oh, even like saying Michael Wilson's the number one option there, and it's like I disagree. Like Marvin Harrison is still that guy. If he can just get out of his own way, like it is very simply like a like just clear up the issues type of thing. So I still have like the utmost faith in him, like turning out to be like just a monster in this league. And Trey McBride obviously is like a machine for them on the offense as well. So I look around at the offense, I'm like, all these pieces like it's a lot of fun. They brought in Tyler Algier to be a kind of backup to Jeremiah Love, and you have James Conner there still as well. Obviously, he's coming off an injury, but I was like, all the skill positions. I'm like, I have some pretty solid guys where I think you could make some moves on the offensive end. I look at the defense and I'm like, that's where you see the biggest issues. I really like Walter Nolan. I think he can continue to take a next step. Josh Sweat is coming off an injury, so you're kind of questioning what that looks like. Buda Baker and Will Johnson, I think, are great pieces on your DB room. Everywhere else, I'm looking at that defense and I'm saying it's probably food. Like it just isn't going to be good. But like I said, I just come back to that offense and I'm like, it could be a lot of fun and a really kind of train wreck way, where it's like the offense like is just I can see this offense like pushing teams like where teams that might try to take it as a bye week and be like, oh, we got the Cardinals, and then it's like this team pushes them to the limit on the offensive end, and their defense just kind of folds at the end.
I agree with the offense part. Like I think the O line is better than people think it is, and I think if Jeremiah Love can be healthy, because we know he's already dealing with some injury stuff, like I do think he can be an impact guy like immediately. But they do also have Tyler Algier there as a backup too, and like James Conner is, I don't know how healthy he is right now, but like the fact that he's like your third guy now, you're like okay, like we have some more stuff to work with here. Where last year they were picking up guys off the street. Trey McBride can still do a lot for you, and him and Brissett like because Kyler Murray is one of those shorter quarterbacks again, where you're worried about him throwing over the middle, which is why Trey McBride was getting all these yards but not needed touchdowns a lot, like when he was playing with Murray. But then like he breaks out even more, and he's becoming more of like a touchdown like reliable machine for the Cardinals as like one of the top tight ends in the league. So it's like you're completely right. There's pieces there, and like the fact that you still have like Michael Wilson, and then they added Kendrick Bourne. It's like this is a good, like it's not a bad receiving room. Like this is like a receiver room. The Raiders wish they had this receiving room. So I don't know. Like I just the Jacoby Brissett stuff. I'm like, yeah, he's serviceable. He's like a spot starter, but I just another full season with him. I'm like, I don't know. Like LaFleur's got a lot cut out for him here, and Hackett, I guess.
Yeah.
But and then on the
They
defense,
did draft they did draft Carson Beck as well, who like
who
I will
he
say
didn't.
looked pretty decent at times during the preseason games. Obviously, preseason he's going against a different set of defense that's
All
probably
right,
not going to be on waivers. But at
week
the end of
week
the day,
10, week 10, you're 2-8. Are you playing Carson Beck?
I don't see why not. I'll at least see what he's got. Like I before probably even before you get to 2-8, depending on how bad things get. Like I don't know. I think they at least deserve to give him a shot after what he's shown in the preseason.
I actually surprisingly agree. Like I didn't expect to agree, but I kind of do. And then yeah, on the defense, I don't even know if Josh Sweat's going to be there. Like he clearly like he's made very clear he wants out of there. So they probably won't have Josh Sweat really this season. And then after that, you're like, okay, like good luck, Walter Nolan. Like does like Baron Browning finally get and David Collins give you something too? Like I don't know. The DBs, I think I'm higher in the DBs than you are. Like I want to see more. Like I'm still holding a little bit of hope for Denzel Burke.
I know you're a
Garrett
big Denzel
Williams,
Burke
Max
fan.
Melton, like they have like Contrell Clark, like they have younger guys where you're like, okay, like maybe someone here can step up and be that guy, like opposite of Will Johnson, who as long as he can stay healthy, you were really high on him coming out of the draft last year. Like it was like he was your guy and Ravel was my guy, and Will Johnson really
We
came
saw
on
we
like
saw how
when.
that worked out.
Hey, listen, they both come off of injuries. It was like flip a coin. All right. But then yeah, and then I do think the loss of Thompson at the safety spot, and like they added Wingard, who like obviously he's like a vet with experience as like starter. But I think they'll miss him alongside Buda Baker. But Buda Baker is still one of the best safeties in the league who can be a difference maker for you. So I don't know. Like this team has just so many like, especially on defense. There's so much like just I don't know what this is going to look like. But on offense, you can see like how it could work. It's just new head coach. Nathaniel Hackett's one of your offensive coordinators. You don't know how some of these young players are still like developing. And then on the defensive side, it's just can anybody make a play for us? It feels like, and Walter Nolan, who came in last year off of an injury, you're just hoping like he doesn't get overused and have to be at a point where it's like he just needs help. So I think you're right. This is another one of those teams where you're like, all right, like, are we getting another Ohio State receiver, or like, what's our quarterback situation? Like, is this an Arch Manning spot? Like, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. All I'm gonna say is that I have the utmost faith in Marvin Harrison Jr. turning out to be the Marvin Harrison Jr. that like we expected him to be from when he was drafted.
I hope so.
But we're gonna move on to the the Rams. Um, Finished 12-5 last year, and normally that would be good enough where you're like, oh, like we had a pretty good season, like let's just run it back. Um, the Rams said fuck the picks, except of course drafting Ty Simpson with their first round draft pick instead of Makai Lemon or any other like player that you could immediately slot in to fill the void. But like you talked about this and like how that seems like it's more of a like a GM, what's the future type of pick. And I mentioned earlier the Matthew Stafford like back injury stuff, like that kind of just went away randomly, and I still like at the end of the day I'm a little concerned that like something that went away so sporadically could come back just as fast.
Yeah.
Um, but they traded Jared Verse for Miles fucking Garrett, and then they also traded for Trent McDuffie as well, which like was just like blow after blow. As an NFL fan watching this team load up, and they didn't really necessarily need to. Like they had a good team last year, where it's like you had the MVP Matthew Stafford, Puka Nakua took this big leap for you, and yes, he's doing crazy stuff off the field, but like this team was insane last year and was a Super Bowl favorite, and then they like just stacked the odds with like Miles Garrett, Trent McDuffie, and filled damn near all the holes that they really had on this team. Obviously, you're still kind of looking and saying like, can that run game take another leap? Like, can it help take the load off the offense? But you still have Puka, you still have Devontae Adams, you have weapons all around the field on offense and defense. But with that being said, there are also a couple issues I have. Like once again, the Stafford back thing. I look at it and say like, what happened, and is there any chance that like something like that could randomly just like pick up again? Because that was a weird thread point that like we were hearing around this time last year. It was like, was Matthew Stafford healthy? Like, what's the deal? Like they were saying he wasn't going to play. It was weird. Puka Nakua, this man has been on a crazy off season like just trip, and there potentially might be a suspension coming because of it. So we're still waiting on that. The NFL has been weird about like especially this time, like this season more than anything. It's like there's a couple players where you're like, what's happening with them? Like we're almost here, and like we're hearing suspensions might come for like Josh Jacobs and Puka Nakua, and it's like all right, like all the fantasy owners are going
Well,
crazy right
and it's
now.
not even just him on the offense they got to worry about with the same exact problem because Alaric Jackson, their starting left tackle, who is extremely important to this team. If you even look at the record, like what this team is like when they play without him, he is crucial to the team. And he's dealing with domestic stuff as well and may be suspended or just off the team. Well, he won't be off the team because it's just the way the NFL is, right? Like he's just too good to be let go like that.
NFL,
Let's
NBA,
yeah,
fun.
well, yeah. So it's like, yeah, that's two players already that are crucial to this offense that are like, you don't even know how many games you're going to have from this season because of suspension stuff. let alone the injury history that both of them have, including Puka. So it's like, yeah,
It is like I genuinely have concerns about some of the cure like the pieces and like their like the injury history like because that would completely rattle anything. And then the suspension and what the off the field stuff is going to look like for this team. With that being said, this team is still insane. Like it's a Super Bowl favorite. Like if they were without Puka for 8 games would be like I think that like the NFL would push back against giving Puka an 8 game suspension. But like if he's suspended for at least the first couple games of the season, like you can go with Devontae Adams even at his age. I know you might be concerned about the injury history. You have like enough pieces as well with the Jordan Whittington who can step up and you'll be serviceable for that time being. And then Puka can come back and be damn near the number one receiver in the league. And on the defensive end, it's like do you have Miles Garrett? Like teams are going to be so worried about blocking him now, where it's like it opens up more opportunity for Puna Ford, Kobe Turner, Braden Fisk. Like all of these players are going to be able to attack in waves, which is just like terrifying. So it is really like they're obviously the Super Bowl favorite in a lot of different ways, and as well Trent McDuffie as well fixes the biggest. You mentioned that he is more of a slot guy, so maybe there is still the concern about like outside, like DB, but Jalen Watson's there, so it really just felt like the Rams were just like we're buckling down. We're going to go out there and go all out and make advantage of this Matthew Stafford while he's fully healthy, while he's out there being this MVP candidate. And I don't blame them. It's the best thing they could have done.
no, 100%. And I want to start with the DB room. I love this DB room, dude. Like, I've been a big fan of Trent McDuffie since he came out of college, and he's proven to be like everything we thought he was going to be. Quentin Lake and Cam Curl is one of my favorite DB like duos, like for the safety position in the league. So, like, the fact that like they got those guys, you add Jalen Watson as well, the other guy from the Chiefs. You still have Cameron Kitchens there as well. So it's like you have a lot of versatility with these DBs, which I like because you can move around guys like Curl, McDuffie, and Lake all around the field. It feels like, and they can be versatile in that way. So that is really fun for me. And then yeah, just Miles Garrett being there just solves so many issues you don't even know you have. Like he's just one of the guys that's like everyone's like, oh, you got to prevent fires that they come up. Like fires don't happen because of Miles Garrett. It's just like he's there to run your defense and make everything happen, and then everyone else can just play their roles behind him, and you should be fine. Like it should. It's like that's how good this guy is. We even mentioned the fact that Aaron Donald might come back to this team, which they keep teasing. And my feeling is that it's either he just didn't want to have to go through the training camp stuff, or he's just like waiting to see like what's going on with the team because maybe he's concerned
Donald's
about some injury
situation is
stuff.
weird.
But I don't know. Yeah, the Rams are. I don't know. They're annoying sometimes with like the media and like the way they handle their players and everything situation going on there. But I mean, poor Sean McVay with both the Puka Nakua stuff that he's had to deal with constantly since last year in the playoffs, and then now the stuff with Larry Jackson, and then having to worry about Matthew Stafford's back not disintegrating off of one hit. It's just like this team. What I'm always worried about teams like this is it's the super team of the year. This is my first note on the team was like, hey, it's the 2026 super team. There's a version of this every year. This year's the Rams, which they've been a lot lately, but like it's also a very fragile super team. We've already talked about the injuries they have.
Yes.
Matthew Stafford could come up there. They're already dealing with injuries along their D line, including Miles Garrett, but I'm not obviously worried about him. But like I don't know. The offense I won't be worried about simply because it's Sean McVay, but it's just the entire ecosystem. It just feels like you miss two or three guys and you're relying way too much on Mumfield and Devontae Adams, who's still very good, but not what he used to be. It's like I don't know. It feels more fragile to me than people are willing to like admit. But at the same time, like you still have Kyron Williams who can be a touchdown machine for you. They're very high on Blake Corum taking another step this year, so maybe they lean a little bit more into the run game as well. But I don't know, man. Especially I like the Puka one is bad because it's like I think he can is like a top 5 receiver in the league, but the Larry Jackson one is more concerning to me, like all around.
It all is good. Like I like that you mentioned that, like how fragile this truly is, because when you think about it and you look around in that depth chart, you're like, if he's out for a couple of weeks, like this team drops a couple of games that affects seeding, especially like a competitive NFC.
You cannot slip
Like
up in this division.
yeah, it is. There is the potential for like just like collapse, but even then, like a collapse for them, like they're still like a 10-win team, so it's tough to like really determine what that'll look like. As long as they get into the playoffs, they're a threat to
Yeah,
the
and it's not
entire
like they're
NFC
fighting for
North.
home field advantage because they don't get that anyways.
That's crazy. I mean, you're right, but like,
I mean, I'm not even saying that facetiously. I'm being 100% dead serious. It's like, hey, whatever. Like maybe we get an away game with like the Lions where we're in a dome, and maybe that fits us a little bit better, honestly. Like rather than being in LA or with like a bunch of I don't know, would it be like the Niners fans coming in there or something like that? You know what I mean? Like another wild card team. It's just like crap.
yeah.
But I don't know. Like I have like I understand why they're Super Bowl favorite. They're one of the teams I think should be in the Final Four, but I also think this is a little bit more fragile than people are like realizing.
Yeah.
All right,
All
who's
right,
next?
over to the Super Bowl winning team that is the Seattle Seahawks, who finished 14-3 last year, won the Super Bowl, and as a result, got their team picked apart a little bit. And it starts with the offensive coordinator, who they now brought up, Brian Flory, who was the run game coordinator for the 49ers previously. And I will say, like, I, this team will be very good from last year because a lot of their core pieces are still there.
Mm.
They didn't lose Kenneth Walker is a very like critical core piece, but I am like if there's one rookie that like I am willing to die on the hill that like will step in and like be good, it is Jadarian Price. Like
You're so excited about him.
I am like I was the entire draft process. I was like I feel like he could be a great Kenneth Walker replacement. Like you can put him in and like because of the value that like a lot of teams had on him because he was the backup to Jeremiah Love. It's like those dual back, type of situations in college. It is kind of like but like watching him on film and watching him even with alongside like Jeremiah Love, I was like I am in love with Jerry Price on the field, of course, not and I kind of not that like not anything against it, but I just I genuinely just really like his game, and I think the versatility that he can bring. Like a lot of the comparisons I think were that he's kind of the more like stockier, like back to like Jeremiah Love's more kind of quickness thing. And I understand it as well. Like there's a couple of times where I'm like, he's getting hawked down. Like he needs to just like unhatch the trailer. But otherwise, like I think he could do so much for you, and everything that we've heard out of Seattle camp already, about I think it was Ernest Jones who was talking about him. He was like he caught me on a couple plays and like the versatility that he's bringing to the passing game as well. So for me, it's like I think he solves like I don't say like he subs in and he's instantly like the Kenneth Walker for them because I think that like he still is a rookie. You're going to have those learning curves, but I think especially while Zach Charbonnet is out, like he is the perfect guy to come in and you can say like take some pressure off of Sam Darnold, be our lead back for a while. But as well, like that's not my issue. Like, because I think the offense is going to be good. Like JSN, Sam Darnold, we saw like is capable of leading this offense. You still have weapons all across your the field. The offensive line is really good. I just look at this and say like they've lost a couple of like I wouldn't say like crucial pieces, but like almost like very underrated pieces, especially in their defense, where you're like you're going to feel the void missed. And that's where I look at it and say, like, I think that's where we'll see them drop a couple of games where it's like the depth that they had isn't as strong anymore.
I mean, I agree, and partly because like I am a big Boy Mafe fan, and they lost him to Cincinnati. They was prequel into the Eagles, and then
Yes.
Kobe Bryant goes to the Bears, where he's now injured for the season, unfortunately. But I feel like they filled the gaps like well enough. Plus, and this is we said this with other coaches. Like Mike McDonald is one of the only coaches in the league where I'm just like he could roll out there with the Raiders defense at the beginning of the season. I'll be like they'll still probably be like top six. Like just Mike McDonald is that good because he is one of those coaches where it's like you used to talk all the time like Bill Belichick, right? Like in his prime, where it was like his defense is multiple because he just changes it with the person. Like he has his own philosophies and everything like that. But like it also changes with the personnel that you have. And Mike McDonald is so good about that, where it's like he just knows how to use the players that he has, and they have so many good players, which is what makes it like extra like difficult to deal with. Where it's you lose Boye Mafe, but you got Dante Fowler Jr. in behind Demarcus Lawrence now. You're like, okay, cool. Dante Fowler is like a great mercenary like pass rusher that goes team to team. He'll be able to fill that role. I think. I don't think he'll be as fast, but like he still brings that element to your team where it's like you're not too worried about your depth behind those guys. And then on defense, they brought back Josh Jobe, former Eagle back in the day, actually. And like he would in spot like like in the playoffs or wherever it was, like he came in and actually played like decently well for them. And like I said, when you have Witherspoon, even Warrior, who would be back healthy hopefully soon, like I'm just Julian Love, I'm just not really as worried about this defense. Now they have been dealing with some injuries, like Bud Clark was just injured. I think was
Yeah.
it today or yesterday? And he'll be out for the season, which
Yesterday broke
really
his, or
sucks.
a
He was
couple
one of my
days ago
favorite
broke his
safeties
ankle.
coming
Yeah.
out. Yeah, he was one of my favorite safeties coming out of this draft. I was like, damn it. And so I was really excited to see him possibly step up into that role. They signed Trevon Diggs though as well to add depth to that corner room, which is like, hey, look, I know what his past was with the Cowboys and him getting burnt all the time, but with a coach like Mike McDonald, him having not to be like that number one corner anymore, maybe he could fit in here and take over for Josh Jobe eventually. Like we'll have to see on that.
Yeah,
And you have studs at every level of the defense, and not just stud, like multiple. Like the D line has multiple studs. Like Leonard Williams is one of the best D tackles in the league, and it's cool to see him finally get his flowers in that way. But then it's like right next to him, you have fucking Byron Murphy, who's like also ascending to be one of the best young D tackles in the league. So it's like, and then you have Ernest Jones behind that, and then the DBs we just talked about. So it's like, and then Mike McDaniel calling all of it. So I think this defense will again be top three in the league, if not the best, like potentially because of who and they have and who's calling it. And the offensive side, I don't. This might be the first time since like the Russell Wilson era where they've returned the same O line. Like I don't think people understand like how bad this O line has been historically for years. This is what we were talking about when Geno Smith was there too. It was like, can they just get a consistent O line here that can protect these guys? And now they have Sam Darnold, second year with them. The only thing is like it's just a new offensive coordinator, and we don't know how like what he's going to bring from the 49ers. They hired from outside after they had some people inside that they could have possibly gone with, and I don't know. I think we'll see the tight end game be a lot more used here. Like Barner and Arroyo could have like really big season. I remember Arroyo was hurt last year, and he was supposed to be like a big addition to this offense. So I'm excited to see him healthy and what he can do in this offense now with the new coordinator. And then JSN, like we have to talk about him because the best receiver last year, and I don't know if he'll have the similar production, but like he is still like I wanted to ask you this question. I had this in my notes.
yeah,
Is JSN top five for you when it comes to receivers?
yes,
Yeah. Okay. Good.
yes.
Good. Because I
Now, like,
think we.
there's a it was weird last year because like obviously you had like Justin Jefferson who had quarterback issues. You had Jamar Chase who was battling injuries and quarterback issues. But I still like CeeDee Lamb just was uncharacteristically not himself last year. Like there was a lot of moving pieces. I still think JSN, like even if you get a competent year from Justin Jefferson quarterback wise and Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb, like he's still clearly up there with it.
But then like they keep Rashid Shaheed, who like they didn't really get to fully integrate last year, but like he was still useful for them. So like they brought him back obviously for a reason. And then I talked to him about last a lot at the beginning of last season, but Tory Horton, who like coming out of Colorado State, I was like, dude, I love this guy, and he showed some good stuff before he got injured last year. So and Jake Bobo got hurt, which kind of sucks for them because he was like a good blocker for them at times who could do other things for them. But I don't know. I'm still very high on this team, and I do still think like we should consider them like repeating a Super Bowl is like it's such rare air for you to repeat as Super Bowl champion. So like that is the road ahead of them, like to be like with legendary status when it comes to that. But I do still think this team, because of the defense that they have and with the weapons on offense and the consistency with the personnel, this is easily still a team that should be considered like with a chance to repeat.
Yeah, I think once again, my one concern is just I think yes, like McDonald, we've seen he can do whatever he wants with his defense, and no one will have any objections. I still think those couple personnel pieces that they are missing are a lot more like a lot bigger than what people may have just seen on paper. Like, oh, they lose William Mafia, and it's like he was a big part of just the pressure that they had. So
Yeah.
once again, I agree with you. They're going to still be the same Seattle team from last year. I just think it was difficult, especially when you consider a landscape of just NFL to repeat and to do it when teams are starting to understand it and figure out ways to attack you differently and guard JSN differently and put different, there's so much adjustment that we're going to see made against this team that I really want to see how they'll do it,
Oh,
especially on the offensive end and losing their coordinator as well. So obviously they're going to be the same Seattle team where they're competing. I just wonder where they'll kind of fall when it comes to the rest of the NFC.
Yeah, I agree. And like Sam Darnold, I think he finally did prove something last year. Just keep him upright. He can make the right plays for you. He's got a special arm. And I and then real quick, I don't know why I wanted to mention him so bad, but George Halani, like in spot times when he came in last year, especially after Charbonnet got hurt, like he was genuinely like a good running back for them. So I think him and Price, like that's a good young running back room for them to have going forward. And Price can still be that like explosive guy that Kenneth Walker was, I feel like. And then Halani could be more of that red zone guy that he was a lot of times for them last year.
I
But
don't hate it.
all
And
right.
and and finally adding Charbonnet back when he like throughout the rest of the season, the second half of the season would be like just a nice piece to like unlocking a lot since like before he was gone like there was a lot of like the splitting carries thing was a big discussion and I think it was for good reason because Charbonnet is really talented. But final team, the the 49ers. Now look, I personally hate the 49ers because I'm an Eagles fan. I've been trained to, especially the past couple, like past like 5 years. It's become one of the biggest rivalries besides the Cowboys, especially outside of the division. With that being said, this team, like, I feel bad for Kyle Shanahan because as much as I hate the 49ers, I really like Kyle Shanahan, but like every year it is just like I'm looking right now at their depth chart right now, and like ESPN does like O's and Q's in red next to the players' names that are like injured, obviously like out and questionable, and it's just their offense is fully like just red. And it's like Christian McCaffrey, Mike Evans, Deshaun Stribling, George Kittle, Kyle Juszczyk, like like both of their guards. Like it is
Even Shanahan.
every yeah every year it is like and I think Shanahan like getting hurt. I was just like, all right, like you can't like the NFL gods are just like having just the funnest time, like being like, what can we do next? Like with the 49ers and injuries. Um,
Well, if you look at what happened with their owner today, it seems like they got thrown another curveball.
they it's just different ways to attack it. But on a coaching staff change, they brought in Raheem Morris as their new defensive coordinator after his head coach stint in Atlanta, which I'm excited to see what that looks like and him being able to specifically focus more on the defense and kind of develop that aspect. With that being said, I just the injuries like genuinely kind of concern me. Like you signed Mike Evans, who was coming off of a year in which he like uncharacteristically had injuries for the like probably the first time in his career and wasn't able to have his 1,000 yard season like he typically does. So that was like, all right, like he's kind of regressing, he's getting older. And now the 49ers are adding him in a position where it's like we've seen that like he isn't as explosive and he's dealing with injuries for the like first real consistent time in his career. You brought back Debo Samuel, but he's older. And then you drafted Deshaun Stribling when there was much better receiving options, and like that hurt my soul as someone who like developed and focused and spent most of my time on the receivers. I was just like, oh, like Stribling of anybody that was available on the board, but they had that whole thing about like, oh, we sign what's on our like we go and attack what's on our board, and we're not looking at the overall draft board and what you guys have, and it's like maybe you should have. But I still think that like at the end of the day, Shanahan will have this team in a competent competing position because that's what he's done and that's what we've seen from him coaching wise. I just still fear that like this team and the personnel that they have, the injuries are a major concern every year. And it seems like it just gets worse and worse, especially like if they're having these injuries already in the preseason, and we've seen historically what it is at this time of year, I don't have a lot of confidence. We took a very brief break so you could adjust your camera stuff, and we got some breaking news in the process. The NFL is ending the Pro Bowl. There's no more Pro Bowl, and instead there will be the player honors will remain. So you will earn the recognition as a Pro Bowl, but the Pro Bowl games itself and all the little events that come with it, they're no longer doing it. And also they will not naturally acknowledge alternates as well. So no more Pro Bowl.
I mean, the Pro Bowl's been broke for what, a decade now. Like, I think I keep making the joke that ever since they took it away from Hawaii when I was about to move there, like it's just been broke since then. But like, I was thinking about this even the other day when I was talking to some people about football. I was like, do you even consider like if you hear Pro Bowler and then player after that, do you even care anymore? Like, is it even an award now? Because like, what was you had backup quarterbacks who played like two games
Tyler
who were
Huntley,
getting
I
into the
love
Pro
Tyler
Bowl.
Huntley, but
Yeah. So it's like the Pro Bowl has meant nothing when it comes to your accolades and like who you are as a player for like a while now. And it's just like so to me it's like I don't know if you need to get rid of like the Pro Bowl games or whatever cuz like it was fun for some people. I don't know what the numbers were with like people that watched it or whatever. But like to me the thing they needed to change was just the voting process and how they figure out who gets those honors in the first place because the whole voting process and who got in and out was just completely broken, especially when it came to like if you were a team going to the Super Bowl, then you were just like, okay, there goes your Pro Bowl thing, and then now someone else just steps in for you. It's just, I don't
yeah.
know.
I think it's tough because it's like in order to actually get like try to get people to go to this, like you have to fix and establish what it even looks like and kind of shift the like the games itself. And they constantly like to their own credit kept trying to do little things to make it more competitive, but people just didn't care. So it's tough to try to get them to come when especially like once they implemented the alternate system. I think that to me like that was when it went really downhill because it was like you had people just be like, oh, like why would I go? Like especially the top stars seeing it and being like, oh, I just don't want to go. I have an injury. I'm not going. So it is unfortunate. I think because it was fun at sometimes to see the little cool stuff they would do. At the same time, I'm pretty sure ratings weren't the best if they're like moving, not moving forward with this. Because if the ratings were good and the players were just like, oh, we don't like this as much, like I think they would have just been like, all right, whatever, like our ratings are good, we're making money off of it, like So it's a little sad, but at the same time, it's like it's probably too late. Like this has been coming for a while. So
100%. Well,
all right,
whatever.
back to the
All right, let's get
Seahawks
back to
though.
real
I'll let
football
you
now.
real football. Oh, not the Seahawks. 49ers. I'll let you say what you have to say about them.
Yes, I mean you already went about the injury stuff, which is like it has to be talked about every year with the Niners just because of how like devastating it has been for this team. Like the fact that we have like the substation conspiracy theories at this point now, it's just like. By the way, the best thing I saw, like this may be a little too nerdy, but like the best meme I've seen so far of the substation stuff was that like the 49ers players were practicing in front of it, but in the background it's like the Lord of the Rings, like like the tower in the background, like looking over them. And I was like, all right, this is pretty. It's some Lord of the Rings nerd in my family's gonna be like, it's called this, but whatever, you know what I mean. All right, anyways, back to the 49ers themselves though. As long as Shanahan is calling this offense, I'm gonna have some level of confidence in it where I'm like, they're gonna be like top half at the very least, probably top 10, just because he's calling it. And Brock Purdy is good, and even when like, or at least good enough to run this offense. And then you have Mac Jones, who stepped into last year as a backup and actually played pretty well. So like you can run an offense well with the guys that they have. They've proven that. I'm worried about George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey because George Kittle, who surprisingly is supposed to come back for apparently week 1 in Australian for them, where like after coming off of his Achilles, I'm like, I don't. It's almost like the Daniel Jones thing. I'm like, I don't know how this is possible, but somehow he's back. And then CMC had like the most touches. I don't know if it's he ever had, but like he had like a lot of work on him last year. Where it was like we came into the season last year, like okay, he's talking about how he's like tendonitis in his legs or whatever, and we're like worried about it. And then he had the most like work he's ever had to follow that. So now it's like coming into a season like this, like you're coming in healthier, I guess, but at the same time, like how much longer can CMC do this before his body really does just start to break down, especially as a running back?
Yeah,
So that worries me. The O line will always forever worry me. But like I said, like Shanahan just seems to know how to make it work. And on the defensive side, you lose Robert Sala, who was with you last year and did the best he could. Like I just, he did what he could with all the injuries that they had to Bosa, Michael Williams, Fred Warner was out, like all these guys. But you get them back. Michael Williams will come back at some point, and like I still think he has to work on his pass rush, but like he brings a little bit extra juice on the opposite side of Bosa. Fred Warner being back solves a lot of problems for you. And I think the DBs are like good enough. Like it just last year was such a hard study for the 49ers defense because they were so injured, and especially up front. It's just like, how can you properly even judge anybody when you can't even pressure the
yeah,
quarterback? It's just, so I don't know. There's a lot of questions there with this team where I'm really worried about the defense, but they still have like the star players to make it work if they like at least to be good enough. And the offense with Shanahan calling it, but I mean, like you said, like all the injuries that they already have. You bring in Mike Evans, who dealt with everything that he did last year. You like, what's his name, the younger guy, Pearsall. He's out for
yeah.
the year
Oh,
already. It was like he was supposed to be like a big addition, like a big get
yeah,
back for them for this year as well, because he has looked really good for them when he's been out there. Stribling, like the rookie they get, already injured. It's just like, okay, what is this team actually going to be? Because it's the same thing with the 49ers every year, where it's like the ceiling is like Shanahan could lead this team like to a deep run in the playoffs, but at the same time, like his tendencies in the playoffs, the injuries that they always have, and there's so many questions about their defense. It's like I don't actually know like where like this team could end up only winning like 6 games. I'd be like, yeah, I could see the pathway towards that. But at the
yeah,
same time, if they won like 11, 12 games, I'd be like, I could also see like how that could happen for the team. But in this division too, like we said, you can't slip up in this division. And this is one of those teams where I think home field advantage like Seahawks the most. But like for the 49ers, like you don't I think home field advantage matters so much in this division because you don't want to play at the Seahawks home. Like
yeah.
even if your home field advantage isn't as good as the other teams, it's definitely not as good as the Seahawks. So you have to do what you can to stay out of like going through that in the playoffs. So I just don't think the Niners have enough, and just the injury stuff that they're already dealing with and they're inevitably going to deal with. I just like part of me wants to like gamble on them, be like, you know what, screw it. Like I could see them being like second or even first in this division. Everything goes right, but at the same time, I'm just like they're just another one of the teams where I'm like I'm out. Like I'll check in again in October, like maybe closer to like Halloween, and then we can have a discussion about the Niners. But until then,
Yeah.
I'm just like I really. It'll probably just be a lot of the same stuff we saw last year, and then we'll just see if it improves if they have injury luck.
it it's really hard to. And I'll use this to summarize and then
They
transition
brought
to our final
Debo back, by the
predictions.
way. That's where the
Yeah,
receiver room is.
it's to me it, it's really hard to just judge where this team is going to be because of the injuries. And I like that was all I talked about. It's because like it's all I can see when I look at this team. And it's like even Brock Purdy last year, you dealt with some injuries and you had to have Mac Jones step in. And obviously he played good for you, which was a positive. But it's like the fact that it even happened, like everyone's dealing with something. You're and yes, Shanahan can solve a lot of those problems by just being Shanahan, being one of the best coaches in the league. But at some point, like there has to just be figured out like what is the root cause of like all of this. Like you got
Is
to
it?
get to a. We need to get Palatorre to investigate this because like he'll have the answer by like the end of the like the year. Like we'll figure out like hey hell I think if we like were to inform him right now we'd know by like by November at the latest. Like
He's still busy with Kawhi, so I don't know.
yeah, so it's like, oh, maybe he's got a lot, but either way, it is just like you mentioned, they have a lot of good pieces. Like Fred Warner is like one of the best
He's
defensive
still the
players,
best
just
linebacker in
flat.
football.
That's flat out. And the way he can impact his team, even if like the rest of the team around him is hurt, like Fred Warner is going to captain that defense and be the leader that you need from him. But there's just so many question marks like outside of just everywhere around this team, which is
Is
why
it?
like yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, like, I think you might be saying almost like saying the same thing, almost in a way where it's like, is this the most like why not us team? Like nobody believes in us. Like we have the talent, but nobody believes in us. So it's like, why not us?
Yes, I like it's the you could say the Geno Smith like what like they wrote me off and it's like yes I absolutely am like I
Oh yeah,
absolutely am
like I said, like
like
I don't like this team is so like I'm like I can see it, but I need to see some of it before I can actually give like okay now I can see where you guys are going in the season. But it's just like I don't know, man. Like with the Niners, like obviously I'm going to watch a lot of the games because they're a fun team to watch, like especially on offense. And Fred Warner is always like I'll tune in for that. But it's just by week 6, I think we'll actually have a better. Well, I mean, you can say it's like every team, obviously, but like for teams like the Niners, it really is just like who's even still around by the time we get to
yes
November, and then we can go from there.
I can't help but sum it up. I can't sum it up any better. And speaking of sum it up, let's sum up our final predictions.
Nice.
Last I have the 49ers. Oh no I lied Cardinals.
Oh,
I
dude.
I had the I like and I think this is where I'm at the fact that like I'd even consider it. Like I'd be like I could see it, but the like I said, fun frisky offense, the defense, and a lot of the other pieces around it, it's like it's not good enough. And as bad as the 49ers are going to be, and the potential of them being like a 6 win team solely because of injuries, I think those 6 wins is a lot more than the Cardinals are going to get this year. And then so speaking of them, I have 49ers third, Seahawks I have second. I just think the Rams and the firepower that they have, like it is like yes, it is you mentioned it could be really, really fragile if like Matthew Stafford were to go down. I still think the personnel that they have and Miles Garrett and everything, all the additions that they've made, it adds up to me where it's like I can't. It's very hard to bet against them. But I do think like that to me is like the race I'm looking at. Like out of any, if there was any division, like if you were to say like what division, what like two like 1 to 2 place matchup am I looking at to say like I think this could change, it would be the Rams Seahawks.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going Seahawks, Rams, Niners, Cardinals. And my reasoning is if you told me the Rams were going to be completely healthy all season and they were going to have any suspensions, then I'd be like, all right, I'm in. But we don't know how many games Puka or Lamar Jackson are going to play. And I think when you go against a team like the Seahawks, when you're missing those kind of guys, you're kind of going to get screwed over, especially without Lamar Jackson there. Like that D line could just feast on Matthew Stafford without him there. So I think like those that's how small the margins are within this division, where it's just like those games are going to matter, like every single game. Like you can't slip up, like we said. So I'm good, and I also am. It's not just that. Like I am fully a believer in Mike McDonald and what this defense is. I think this defense can just straight up win you games as long as Sam Darnold can avoid, the Jets kind of turnovers he's had. Like if he can remain a consistent player who doesn't turn the ball over, and they can get that run game going with Price and Helani and all them, like I don't know. I just give the edge slightly to the Seahawks. So I'm going with them at 1, Rams 2, Niners 3, Cardinals obviously. Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah, the Jeremiah Smith, like them and the Cardinals and 49ers, we're gonna have, or not Cardinals and Raiders, we're gonna have a discussion of like, you're at the bottom of the basement here of like,
And the Titans. I'm rooting for the Titans to get Jeremiah Smith. That's my thing with this year. I'm like, it'd be cool to see them win some games because I like Cam Ward, but at the same time, Cam Ward, I need you to have a number one.
yeah, that's fair. Well, Cardinal Tate is a dog. I'm willing to see that play out a bit more, but
But
I do
imagine
get where you're
Cardinal
coming
Tate
from.
with Jeremiah Smith.
Reunited, I don't hate it, but hey, we are officially done with all of all of our NFL review, division wise at least, because next week what we're going to do is kind of just summarize like everything, and it'd be a little gimmicky and do like the MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year, all the big awards, make our predictions, Coach of the Year, obviously Comeback Player of the Year. So someone for the 49ers who like Fred Warner, I guess. You could just I think the first team I'm looking at and saying like I'll look at the odds and then I'm like, which
It's gonna
49ers
be like
player?
if Rashawn Slater plays like 14 games, they're just like, maybe we just give it to him.
Yeah. But they don't like recognizing offensive linemen, which is why they came up with the offensive lineman award. So either way, we'll break down all of that. Maybe some teams that like we've already talked about it, like teams that we think are going to take a big lead, teams that we think may fall down a bit. But we'll kind of summarize all that and make our like specific predictions for next week.
All right, looking forward to it. And hey, man, this was a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to the season. This was like a great like setting the table for the season. I feel like so. Really looking forward to the season, which starts very soon. It's like it really is like right around the corner for us. So
Yeah.
very excited to watch some real football and dive in each week to the season. So thank everybody who's been watching our previews so far. Like Jay said, we'll be back next week to make some more prediction. We're looking at awards and whatnot. Really looking forward to that. But thank everybody who's been listening or watching, and we'll see you again next week.